Oklahoma Sheriff's Office has released video of an officer-involved shooting that killed an alleged weapons dealer earlier this month. Authorities were recording a sting operation on the man when the shooting took place. They say it was an accident, and the officer thought he was firing his taser. CNN's Victor Blackwell has more.
The incident on April 2nd, captured on police video, shows the suspect, Eric Harris, appearing to sell a 9mm semi-automatic pistol and ammunition to an undercover officer. Shortly after allegedly selling the gun to a Tulsa County gang task force member, Harris runs from officers who were trying to arrest him. It's while Harris is bolting from the police that one of the officers catches up and the suspect is wrestled to the ground. It's in the ensuing takedown that you can hear on the tape the 73-year-old Tulsa County Reserve Deputy Robert Bates shouting that he has a taser.
That's done to warn other law enforcement officers that you're about to deploy this device.
Investigators say Bates accidentally pulls the trigger on his gun instead of the taser, firing a round into Harris. And you can hear him apologize for what he's done. Tulsa City Police Sergeant Jim Clark, who was brought in as an independent consultant, said Friday during a news conference that a scientific phrase explains what happened to Bates in that moment. It's called slips and capture. That's when someone reacts differently in times of extreme pressure.
You can train someone as much as you can, and you train in every area that you can. But in times of crisis, sometimes training is not going to take you through the scenario.
Clark says that in the 200 shootings he's investigated, he's never seen a weapon leave the officer's hand, and he believes there's no doubt that Deputy Bates thought he was getting ready to discharge a taser.
And he obviously had a taser grip, which caused the gun upon discharge to leave his hand and fall to the pavement.
Before the tape was released, Harris's son spoke about the last words he told his father.
I love him, that I'll talk to him again the next day.
Amen.
But then when I didn't get to talk to him, I knew something was happening.
And as the investigation continues, the family and their attorney still want all the information to come to light.
There's a lot that we know about what happened to Eric Harris, but there's a lot that we don't know.
All right, that was Victor Blackwell reporting. So let's talk more about this. Joining me now is retired Los Angeles Police Department Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey. She is also a member of the National Coalition of Law Enforcement Officers for Justice. Good to see you again. So help people understand, how does something like this happen? Because I think the basic understanding is a pistol's on one hip, a taser is on another for an officer. How, especially to avert a mistake like this, explain how it could happen in your view.
Good afternoon, Frederica, and thank you for having me. This shouldn't happen, right? Police officers, like I always say, receive an inordinate amount of tactical training, and we're professionals, and we're taught. We spend hours and hours at the range practicing firearm training, so we are familiar intimately with our weapon, and you should be able, as a police officer, to differentiate between the feel of a gun versus the feel of a taser.
So in your view, does this kind of underscore that maybe the 73-year-old reserve deputy hadn't had enough training, or something was amiss as to why he would mix up these two weapons?
Well, I can't speak to this deputy's training, obviously, because I'm not familiar with it. I mean, I'm wondering right off the bat if age plays a part. He's 73 years old, and so that's concerning to think that a person at that age would still be out in the field doing what, in my opinion, is a young man's game, right? Running, fighting, jumping, shooting. At 73, you're not going to be able to conduct yourself as well as someone in their 30s, 40s, 20s, right? And so to try to minimize and mitigate this deadly shooting, this tragic shooting with, oops, I'm sorry, is unconscionable.
So should there be anything different about, and maybe even the tasers, some better distinguishing qualities between them? I know you talked about, they feel different, would feel very different than a pistol, but should it be a different color, just so that, as another visual reminder for an officer when they raise it, that, oh my gosh, reminder, this is a taser, not a gun?
Well, I mean, you can only do so much to try to minimize the mistake between a gun and a taser. I'm sure that there's a weight differential. They may be similarly sized in terms of, it looks like he had a 5-shot 38 as well as the taser, which would look to be very similar in size. But that's why we train the way that we do, and that's why we practice drawing our weapon and pointing our weapon and then firing our weapon ultimately, so that we are intimately familiar with this thing. I use this every day. This is my BFF, if you will. This is what keeps me safe. This is what allows me to go home at the end of the day. So when I do pull a weapon and have to discharge it, it should be second nature. I don't even have to think about what I'm doing, because I've trained just that long and hard. Just like any other occupation. If I'm a chef and I use a knife and a fork, it's important that I be able to distinguish between the two, right?
And then, Tulsa police rolling out this additional video now showing this suspect in this alleged gun offense and showing the chasing of him, the sequence of events. Is there anything to you that you think is customary here, or is it bothersome that all of this video, would be now public information? Does it help answer any questions for you?
Well, for me, what I see is I see this police department circling the wagons, and I see them trying to create a narrative that will minimize and mitigate the officers' poor tactics, and then further vilify this suspect, right? So he's a bad guy. He sells guns. I get that. But you don't get to kill him because you pulled out the wrong utensil. It's unconscionable, and there's no way to explain it away. And so I just wish once a police chief or commissioner would just come on camera and say, we messed up. But they never do, and they never will, because they understand the liability that follows that kind of an admission.
All right, retired Los Angeles Police Department Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey, thank you so much for being back with us today.
Thank you, Fred.
Still ahead. Turkey recalls